So, do you dread going to IEP meetings because you just know it's going to be filled with arguments and just this battling between yourself and the staff? Or when you're at the IEP meeting and you finally get a chance to give your input, do you look up and you see more people rolling their eyes at you than listening? Or how about at the end of the IEP meeting and you can't wait to get out to your car and just scream with the frustration of what you just experienced? If these sound familiar, I'm glad you're with us today because we're going to be looking at how parents can be heard at school without battling. So stay tuned. We're going to be having a juicy time today. So, if you are new to the show, I'm Charmaine Thaner. I'm a retired teacher. I was both a special ed and a general ed teacher, a parent of an adult son with Down syndrome, an advocate, and a lifelong learner about people, communication, all of that good stuff, right? So, today we're not only going to be learning how to do things without the battling, but we're really going to be focused on three powerful and I think maybe surprising ways to be heard at school. So say hi, let us know that you're here. And if you're watching the replay, welcome, and you can still put in your comments. Hey, Kim. Kim is here from Iowa. Are you guys snowed in? And Lisa, how are you, Lisa? She said, great topic, learning forward to hearing more. Yes, yes, it is like one of my favorite topics as far as, to me, I really look at this as the art of advocacy when it comes to communication skills, right? So welcome, welcome, welcome. I'm glad you're here. Allison from California. Thanks for doing, yeah, a very important topic, right? For all of us. I know, I know. Um, and, oh, great, Denise, all the way from Massachusetts. So Allison's in California. Denise is in Massachusetts. We've got both coasts, and Kim's in Iowa. Lisa, isn't it Wisconsin you live in? Okay, we've got the geography down now. Let's go. Let's go, let's go, let's go. So, as an advocate, one of the biggest problems I hear parents talking about is not being heard at IEP meetings. And so I thought this would be a perfect topic for one of our Facebook Lives. And just a warning, so if you're not willing to give up that kind of battle mindset, or like that, like it's fun to argue and debate, if you don't want to give that mindset up, then this isn't going to be a good place for you, because we're going to be talking about how to move past that mindset of it always has to be a battle. And parents will say, well, what do I do? What do I do? I'm talking, I'm researching, I'm going to meetings, and I'm just not being heard or listened to. So we will talk about three different things that you can do differently. However, sometimes we also have to look at what do we need to stop doing that hasn't been working. So if it's been hard for you to feel like you've been heard at meetings and you've been trying a variety of things and it's still really frustrating, we have to look at what are the things that we're doing that we could stop doing. So one of the things that I hope that we can dispel today is that myth of it's always been this way. Teachers and parents, especially when you add in, IEP meetings, it's always been us versus them. It will always be that way. And this is a myth. This is a myth that we need to debunk because we can work together and we can get much better results for our kids when we do so. So, I have a few examples to show you today. Um, but I guess before the examples, it's just to reiterate the negative hostility that can happen when we're continuing to argue, and just that mistrust, that breakdown of communication. So let's look at how some school districts have overcome this. And actually, I wanted to say first that we hear this in this, this us versus them mentality. We see it a lot on social media. We hear it talking with friends, advocates, attorneys. But look at this. Now, here's finally the examples. So this is from PS 41 in the Bronx, New York, and they started this developed a space, but also not just the physical space, but the space to allow parents and teachers to come together, and they call it their family empowerment zone. And what I love is what one of the directors said about this. She said, "We gave parents an opportunity to share their hopes and dreams for their children, as well as their struggles and barriers. This interactive process put family voices front and center, inspired partnerships between educators and families, and led to action. Action." So this is like really refreshing, right? Because we can say there are places in our country and in your state where families and educators have formed really healthy partnerships, and that's what we want to see, and that's what we want to create more of, right? um, so this is from a principal in Kentucky, and he said, "I use parent involvement to promote excellence in the school. If you've got a lot of parents involved in the school, if they are knowledgeable about what you're trying to do, then you've got better reporters on what's going on in school." So I thought this was really interesting as far as, a principal like celebrating the involvement of parents in their school. So let me know in the comments what is I don't know, maybe if you rated your school from 1 to 10, with 10 being really high parent involvement, or 1, not very much parent involvement. How would you rate your school 1 to 10 as far as how much parent involvement is encouraged in your building? I'm going to get a sip of water. Oh, and Abby is from Kentucky, but I don't think she's from Lexington. Mark, yes, the session's recorded and it will be available on Facebook just as soon as our live is done. So Mark said they can't hear anything. Can you guys hear? Yeah, she said brilliant name for a collaboration. Abby said 5 as far as her building, with family involvement. And Kim is saying not sure. So yeah, and that's, I think, what gives us hope is that we know there's other schools and other places that have figured this out, right? Um, this is from a national network of partnership schools that you might want to check out. It was developed from the Johns Hopkins University, and they have hundreds of schools around the country that have really developed a robust partnership between families and schools. And so, again, this is happening around our country. Now we want to make sure we can get it in your school district, right? So today we're really going to be focused on learning how you can be more understood when you speak up, and also how we can really kind of start that skill of being able to understand other team members' perspectives. So, if you've been in that us versus them kind of spiral, chances are you've been experiencing these kinds of problems. You speak up at IEP meetings, you see more eye rolls than anybody really listening to you. Or you might interrupt others during the meeting to try and make your point where it's like, I wish they'd stop talking so I could jump in. I've been there. Another problem could be you don't take the time to try to understand the other people's perspectives. So these are the problems that are, or these are the mistakes that are causing those problems. These are the things that we need to stop doing. So you're not expressing your requests and concerns clearly and respectfully. You're not listening to others and allowing them to finish their thoughts and opinions before you jump in. And you're not actively listening and engaging with the other team members. So, how does this resonate with you? Let me know. Let me see. Yeah. So Allison says, I rate our school at 8.75. I feel listened to in many ways. Good, 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 good. There are some philosophical differences, right? Cool. Yeah, and that's going to be right. I mean, we're not going to do away with differences, but what we want to do is be respectful and try to tap into, what the other person is thinking. So, does this sound familiar? Yes, yes, yes. So Lisa, she said that she met with leaders in a nearby district years ago, and that team started by sharing the present levels and then asking everyone where they wanted to see the student be at the end of the year. Oh, that's a good way. Then they spent the IEP meeting discussing how to get there. Super collaborative. Wow, I love that, Lisa. Thanks. And yeah, and if you guys have ideas that have really been positive, let us know. So that's great, Lisa. Huh. Yeah, and I think that how you start the meeting can really make a difference in the tone for the rest of the meeting, right? Yeah. Um, she said, Charmaine, I took seriously your idea of don't go looking outside for what someone else did on inclusion. Look at what your school has and build on that. That resulted in a new program at school for my son. Thank you. Yes, 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 yes. So, and that's the thing. And I think it's helpful to look at some of the examples of what people are doing, but we really have to come back to our community, our school, our culture. What can we create? So thanks, Allison, and thanks for that reminder too that although we may get some inspiration from others, we do want to bring it back to our neighborhood and what will be, helpful in our situation, right? Cool. So we've talked about that us versus the myth and how we're going to be debunking that, right? We looked at some problems that we have when we're at meetings and some mistakes that we've been making that we can stop doing. So today we're going to focus on an effective way to be heard, how to listen with curiosity, and understanding other people's perspectives. So you're ready, ready, ready? um, this is 6 steps to being heard, and you can use this in verbal conversations. You can use this in emails. I find that this framework is like really helpful, and I encourage you to use it. It's from Dr. Marshall Rosenberg, and I adapted his, he calls it nonviolent communication. So, one of the first things that we do is when we start conversations, we always, it would be nice if we always had something positive to start the conversation. That helps, um, like, like decrease the defensiveness of people is, when we start with something positive. Um, and then the next thing when we're talking is to make an observation. And sometimes the challenging part can be no judgments. Um, I think so many times when we're, caught up with the emotions and the differences between us and the school, that a lot of judgments can come out of our mouths. And instead, we want it to be observations without the judgment part. And then to give yourself permission to talk about the feelings that you have with what you observed. And I think sometimes we think that, oh, this is a business meeting. We don't talk about feelings. We're just facts, data. However, we're also human beings that are connecting with each other, right? So it is fine to talk about feeling frustrated or stressed or confused. And I'll have an example that we'll go over here in a minute. The fourth thing is to talk about a need that's not being met. And that can be one of your needs as the parent. It could be one of your child's needs that isn't being met. So that's important to do next. And then to make a specific request. And the emphasis really is on the word specific. So many times we, kind of said, well, it would be nice if we could, or would it be possible? Or, we have all these ways of phrasing things other than making a specific request. So that is something that's super important. And then the last step is to end with a positive. So let's look at that, what that would look like. So you're going to start off with a positive, like, it can be as simple as thank you to everyone for being here today. Now, here's your observation. I noticed on the draft IEP, it's proposed that my daughter will only be included for 50% of the day. Now, see, that's a true statement, right? It's not, you're not making it up. You saw that in black and white. Now you describe your feelings about what you observed. And you could say something like, I was surprised and felt caught off guard because we've had so many discussions about increasing her time with her classmates. Now, step 4 is to talk about a need that isn't being met. As has been mentioned by many team members today, my daughter is much more engaged and is learning so much more in her general education classroom. And she needs to have more opportunities to be with her classmates. So that need to belong, that need to be learning, that need to be engaged, those needs are the ones that are missing by your child not being included more. And then you're going to make a specific request. I request we review the progress monitoring data and work samples of what she's been doing in the general ed class compared to the special education classroom. So see, it's not like, I don't know why you don't ever listen to me, and I don't know, and this school is, never an inclusive school or whatever. I mean, instead of going off on those kind of statements that you might be feeling inside, instead, let's look at what's an action that we could take. And especially when we're doing it, as the IEP team, um, a collective action that we can take, and we can look at, factual kinds of information. And then, of course, we want to end with a positive, and we would say, I appreciate the time that was added to the agenda so we could look more carefully at the importance of my daughter being supported in the general education classroom. So, like I said, these are things, these 6 steps are things that you would think about ahead of time, right? Um, the more we use this kind of a framework for any kind of communication, either verbally or through email with people, it really does help it to be really precise and clarified. So I'll put that all together here on the slide so you can see what it looks like. So it says, and of course, this would be verbally in the meeting, but you could say, thank you for everyone for being here today. I noticed on the draft IEP, it's proposed that my daughter will only be included for 50% of the day. I was surprised and felt caught off guard because we've had so many discussions about increasing her time with her classmates. As had been mentioned before by many of the team members today, that my daughter is much more engaged and is learning more in her general education classroom, and she really needs to have more opportunities to be with her classmates. I request that we review the progress monitoring data and the work samples of what she's been doing in the general ed class compared to the special ed classroom. And I really appreciate the time that's been added to the agenda so we can really look more carefully at the importance of my daughter being supported in the general ed classroom. So, what do you think? It's a mouthful. um, oh, good question, Katie. So, Katie asks, will these slides be available after the live? And you know what I'll do is I can put them in our newsletter. So, if you get my newsletter, it comes out on Tuesdays or Wednesdays. If you're not, sign up, because then I'll post the slides in the newsletter. So you can sign up to get the slides by going to iep.today /weekly adv tips. Okay. Yeah. Thanks for asking, Katie. I know I don't think about doing that, but yeah, it is nice, especially with with the examples. And also, I have another handout that I'll be emailing people that will give more examples of this using this framework. So thanks for asking. Um, and Lisa says, excellent steps to speak concerns and make recommendation on what needs to be done while maintaining the collaborative relationships. Yeah, because that's the thing. I mean, you know, it hasn't been working very well when we've been arguing back and forth. So, yeah, a different strategy is needed. So, Carissa, how are you? She says, I have a picture I want to show you. It's a visual of the formula, how trust is built. And I think we need to work on building trust using data and feelings and how we document communication. Oh, I'd love that. Can you post it in here in the comments? Can you add that? How cool. Yeah, and I often say that to me the two big reasons why parents call me and want me to, my advocacy help is because communication has broken down and trust has broken down. Um, and so those are like the two key elements, right? To have trust and to have good communication. And that does, that's one of those things that really does take time to develop. Um, So let's see. Um, yeah, and Abby talks about the importance of being open minded and listening to the school staff. Um, Yeah, and Lisa says that she learned a great tip from Julie Costin to start off the IEP meeting discussing the strength of the student and have everyone participate. It really set the tone for us heading into high school. Exactly, and that's a really useful strategy. Um, because what I like about it is it gets everybody starting on the positive at the meeting instead of diving into present levels and other things your child can't do. And so, it's funny because one school that I have been in, the parent had always done that, say, can we take a minute at the beginning of the meeting and have everyone go around and talk about a strength that my child has, or you know uh, an activity that you did with my child that went so well. And it just makes such a difference. And the other thing that's so nice is like when one person is sharing a story about, how funny it was and how neat it was to see your child, working in their small group or whatever. Um, that other people, the other professionals sitting at the table are like nodding their head and like, oh yeah, I've seen that too. So that makes a big difference in setting the tone. And that's what maybe we could just have a whole Facebook live on: how do we set a positive tone to IEP meetings, because that makes a big difference, right, if it's going to be collaborative or not. um so let me see if we, and then let us continue on. So that be heard strategy, like I said, I'll put the slides in the newsletter so you'll be able to have those too. So let's carry on here and share. So the second strategy that we're going to be talking about today is listening with curiosity, and probably some courage and respect too, right? And I just love the phrase "listen with curiosity." And actually, I have a whole chapter devoted to it in my book, which is the art of advocacy. And we could do a drawing for this. Remind me at the end of the show. So listening with curiosity, like what in the world does that mean? I love it. I love it. So the thing is, if we don't listen with curiosity, this is when we get the misunderstandings, the arguments, a feeling of being unheard. And it just makes it really hard for the team to think of any kind of creative solutions that are really going to be workable for everybody. So, in my book, there's 8 different ways on how you can be a better listener and listen with curiosity. Today we're just going to cover one of them. How did we get all these slides? And the one that we're going to talk about today is, drum roll, no interruptions or judgments, which is like holding your tongue, right? Um, and this is really important because we really do want to try to understand the other person. And it's not just paying attention when somebody's talking, but it's really trying to get to their underlying messages. So let's look here. I'm sure you've seen the old tip of the iceberg, and a lot of times we use this when we're talking about kids' behavior and what we see at the top. And I think this also applies, right, to us as adults. Like, at the top, the tip of the iceberg. We can hear the words people are saying. We can see the body language, which is really important, right? When you're in meetings, to watch that body language. However, sometimes that's the level we stop at, and we don't try to listen for what is this person saying, and what hints am I getting here, or clues as to maybe what are some of the unmet needs of that person. And instead of me arguing and trying to win points at the meeting, like, how can I listen, and how can I try to get to that bottom level of what is this person really sharing with us? And it varies, right? And that's part of, too, like, the more that the people, and have a relationship with, it doesn't have to be personal, but have been working with the school staff for a while, and it's like, are they coming from a place of fear, of, maybe the general education teacher is really fearful of, being a failure. It's like, I don't know if I can really do this. I don't know if I can, figure out modified activities for this student to do. I don't, I have no picture of, like, what this is going to look like to have a student included in my class. And so, if that's that unmet need, like, am I going to be successful? Am I going to be a failure at that? And, like, that fear, if that's where that person is coming from, just pounding them with more research articles or videos to watch, or, whatever, that's not going to get to those underlying things that they're really feeling, that are making it hard for them to make any kind of change. So does that make sense? So I think fear is like one of those big things, right? Um, for principals, and I don't know if I think principals are still feeling this, even though, I anyway, I think a lot of principals are fearful of kids being included in general ed classrooms, taking state tests. What does that do for their state scores? And, how does that look for my school building? But you might have a principal, like, that's not what they're worried about, you know? They're worried about, am I going to be judged as an educational leader if we try this inclusive education and we fall flat on our face? How am I going to be seen as a leader in the district if that happens? So trying to see what those underlying needs are and how we can support them to say, I understand, that a lot of times we're feeling this way. And so let's look at what are some, creative solutions that we can look at that will help us not be so, staying at that fearful state. So, does this make sense? Let me know. Let me know. Because, yeah, I think that's like one of the big things. And so it kind of ties into our third strategy, which is about perspective taking. And this is also one of those kind of surprising ways of, like, how you can be heard better is when you can listen better and when we can take other people's perspectives into consideration. So here's a great cartoon I love. There's a stranded person on a very small island, and he sees somebody coming near him with a boat, and he's saying boat, like he's so excited. The person in the boat is looking at the island and saying land. So yes, perspective taking, right, depends on your situation and where you are at. Now, how many of you have kids that have either a goal or some accommodation in their IEP for them to be more flexible in their thinking, right? That's a skill that we teach, we try to teach. um, and it should be for all kids, right? Not just for kids on IEPs, but for all kids to look at that perspective taking and being a flexible thinker. And yet, how many of us as adults think about maybe that's a skill we could get better at, right? So there's four different parts to really having a successful perspective taking experience. The first one is to put aside your thoughts and feelings for a few minutes. Now, this is probably a very challenging step for many of us. It is for me. So what helps me is if I can do some deep breathing. Um, because as soon as somebody starts talking, and especially if it's somebody that you've had disagreements with in the past, I mean, it's so easy for our mind to shut down and it's like, no, and you're not going to hear anything. So we have to really put those past experiences, thoughts, judgments aside and do what we were just talking about, listening with curiosity. And even if you don't agree with the person, just be open to this is another way of thinking about the situation. And it doesn't mean that you're going to agree, but it's to me, it's like really interesting to see perspectives. And that was actually my object for the year. I don't know if you saw our show in January, and I picked Vising as my object of the year to remind me to clearly try to see other people's perspectives, um, and and giving them the time to explain that, and for us to take the time to really truly listen. Um, it's we might have made those judgments like, oh, I bet the general ed teacher is afraid she'll be a failure. And it's like, no, now as the general ed teacher talks more and more, she's actually excited about the opportunity. The one hang up that she might have is there going to be time to collaborate with the special ed teacher? So even though we have these common scenarios in our head, we have to put those aside. We have to listen and we have to try and understand how somebody else would be thinking of that. And it can be so interesting sometimes to hear what people say. And then it's up to you. You get to decide if you want to make any adjustments to your thinking based on the other person's perspective. And you might say, no, I mean, I still feel like, this is how I'm going to perceive it. And, this is going to be our time to agree to disagree. Um, and give yourself permission. Do I need to make some adjustments in what I'm thinking and what I'm, suggesting based on what you heard from other people? So, let's get to some comments because you guys are great. And a reminder, if you're watching the replay, still put your comments in. Kim says, as parents, we do not feel we can take a step back and consider these points. We do not give ourselves permission to say that that is a good point and I want to think on it. But we have to be okay with taking a step back. Thank you, Kim. Have a silent pause for reflection and sit with the silence to really listen. Yes, Kim. Yes, yes, yes. I'm going to take a drink of water for you. And I wanted to show you too a new mug. This is my new product. Up until now, so this is my new mantra. Up until now, it's been frustrating. I haven't been heard at IEP meetings. However, I now am. So, Kimberly, I love that. I love that. Yeah. Wise, wise, wise advice there. Um, yes. Let's see. Yeah. And Christina says it makes sense, but those people need to speak up because we can't read their minds. Oh, exactly. Yeah. And she says that their silence comes off as a lack of interest or outright not caring. Yeah. And that's like one of those big things, I think, when we look at, I don't know if people talk about necessarily like the ground rules, at the beginning of the meeting, but I know some teams will say, in our culture, in our building, silence means approval. So if you're, for whatever reason, not speaking up, we're going to interpret your silence as agreement. So if you see a lot of people sitting in silence, you might bring that back up. The other thing that can prevent that silence sometimes, I think, is to make sure, especially general ed teachers, have an understanding of why they're important and why they're at the meeting. Um, and I rarely see a team ask the general ed teacher for her or his report about how things are going in the classroom. And so I feel like so many times the general ed teachers feel like they're there because they're required. There has to be a general ed teacher and they're filling a slot. But they don't understand because we don't talk to them ahead of time about really the things that they can offer, and it's like sometimes a band teacher is there and the band teacher is like, I have no idea what you guys are talking about with all these measurable goals and everything, but I would love to tell you that in band, he is like so motivated. He like sit next to his friend who helps keep him on track, but I mean, he is music out, trumpet up, and ready to go. And so those kinds of things are important for us to hear too. It's not just like, what's his grade in your class. Those nuances, those insights, that's the culture that we can, I think of like sourdough bread culture for some reason. But it's like those nuances, those are the things that we really want. And I know some school districts will send home like a questionnaire to parents before the meeting. Do you get anything like that in your district or in your school building where they'll want some of your input ahead of time? Do you feel like that's just checking a box, or do they really use that input or listen to that? So let me know. And yeah, so Kim is saying, I agree. It is that fear we could come off like this, but we don't always like the silence. Yeah. And and that's one of my like communication tips to parents also is to be okay with some silence at the meeting. And especially after you've asked a question, you need to be quiet and let them respond. Because especially when we get into kind of heated discussions, it's like, sometimes we just kind of ramble question after question and we're just like, and we never stop and let them respond. Um, so yeah, those little things can make a big difference, right? Um, so let me go back here and just do a short recap. Um, Hey, Anne from South Carolina. She said the school district don't want parents to talk to each other. Yeah. And I mean, that's like a whole nother workshop, right? And that again, it's like, so what's the fear when districts, send out that message, right? Um, So, as our quick recap here, we've talked about the myths that we want to debunk, that it's always been us versus them, parents versus teachers, and it will always be that way. That is not true. It does not have to be true in your building either. We talked about the problems we do and the mistakes that cause the problems we experience, and then the mistakes that cause those problems. And we also focus on a 6-step way to be more effective, either verbally or through email. We talked about listening with curiosity and, most importantly, understanding other people's perspectives. So I wanted to share this quote again in case you weren't with us at the beginning. This is from a director of a parent empowerment group at a local school in the Bronx. And she says, "We gave parents an opportunity to share their hopes and dreams for their children, as well as their struggles and barriers. This interactive process put family voices front and center, inspired partnerships between educators and families, and led to action." And that is my hope for you, is that we will support each other. We will provide that inspiration, but also the permission to mold things in your school district and in your school building around the culture and the community that you have. But we can take action. We can make a difference in our communication and our trust level, and be more in a partnership with schools, and for schools to recognize that they can be in partnership with us, right? So let me know if you have any questions here. I'm going to share my contact information. So if you want to stay connected, you can go to iep.today /Charmaine. And like I said, oh, and I got to do the giveaway. So I'm going to hold the book. And like I said, if you aren't on my email list and you want to sign up, I'll share the slides. I'm going to also share some other resources that we talked about today and some additional ones. So that'll be coming out next week. You can sign up at iep.today /weekly ad tips. And let's go back for a drawing. And I think we'll also do a drawing for a new mug. We need new mugs, don't you think? So first is a drawing for my book, The Art of Advocacy, A Parent's Guide to a Collaborative IEP Process. And our scientific way of doing this is for me to close my eyes. Let me get my scroll here, and I scroll up and down, and I go through scrolling in the comments, and I stop. Where did I stop? Abby, I know you have a copy of my book. I'm going to send you another one because you can pass it out to another parent. Okay. So here's my new mug. It says, up until now. So up until now, my IEP meetings have been dreadful. The other side of the mug, with my lipstick, says, the power of yet. I love it. I love it. I love it. So let me close my eyes and let's see, take off Abby's comment and find where it's scrolling. Where's my scroller? Here it is. It shouldn't be this complicated. Okay, so I'm scrolling through the comments, and the lucky winner of the new mug, and I'll have to tell you where you can get your mug too, is, oops, myself. But that didn't work. Okay, here we go again, folks. Stop. Mark, Well, Mark, I don't know. I think he was going to try and do the replay. But Mark, I'll have to message you and let me know your address, and I'll order you an Up Until Now mug, and it will bring you wonderful vibrations at your next IEP meeting, guaranteed. So thanks for being here today. Have a wonderful rest of your day. If you are in our Connecting for Change group, it's like, what's the name of that? Connecting for Change group. We will have our meetup at a quarter past the hour. So take care, and we shall see you again. Bye bye. Bye bye bye.